So a few days ago, I was working on one of my websites, and one of the things I wanted to do on there was to have the date formatted in a very specific way, a date that was stored inside ACF. And this was stored in a very specific way, which wasn't the way that it was going to output. As you can see, I wanted a date format, like you can see here, like March 30th, 2024, June 8th, 2024, and so on. So a more human readable format. However, the format that it was stored inside the database was this way, which is the year, month, date. Now I needed to store the date in that format because when it comes to sorting the information inside Bricks, it has to be in that format. It doesn't recognize the date format and therefore doesn't sort things correctly. If you want to see a video on that entire process, I'll link that here. Go and check that out. So this was the problem. What was the solution? Let me show you. So by default, you can see inside the design I'm working on, the date just shows up as the random string. Even though we know it's a date format, no one's going to understand that. It's just going to look like gibberish to people. So if we take a look at the text area that I've got set up and the ACF fields I've got in there, which you can see is my events date, we can go and add a modifier to this. So whatever format is being output, we can override that and use our own format. I want to show you a couple of examples of that format and then show you how you can take this and expand it even further with some very simple principles. So the way that I set things up was you basically have the ACF field, example ACF events dates, which is what you can see. Then what we need to do is put in the full colon in between the two, and then we can put the modifier at the end of that. So for our example, we're going to use this modifier, and this outputs it as the month, the day, and then the actual year. So that all looks pretty cool. And as you can see, we're using this F, this J, this comma, and the Y. Now, this doesn't mean anything to man nor beast unless you are someone that's into PHP. And this is where we can use a simple PHP table to be able to see exactly what any or all of these actually mean. So we take a look at this table that I've got on screen. You can see this breaks down what each of the letters actually means. So in our example, we started off with the F, the capital F, and this is the important thing. You do need to make sure you see the distinction between the capital and the lowercase because they do mean different things. For example, if you take a look at the lowercase d, this is the 2-day digit of the month with leading zeros. And if we look at the capital D, that's the 3-day letter of the week. So they're very different. You don't need to get these mixed up. You might have kind of weird results. So we can just check what any or all of these actually mean, and then we can build things up ourselves. So if you wanted to work with the date and the time, you could use the entire string. But let's take a look at a couple of other examples and see how they affect the output that we see. Let's kick things off with a more recognizable example. Let's remove what we have, leaving that full colon in place. And we'll just drop in M-D- capital Y. So this gives us the more Americanized format, which is the month, the day, then the year. So we can modify that if we want to. Let's flip those around. So we'll set the day to be first. This is more sort of UK. And we'll again save this. And you can see for some reason this actually displays correctly now. But you can see we've got the 8th of the 6th, 2024, or we've got the 13th of the 7th, 2024. So this makes a lot more sense if you're based in the UK. Now the cool thing with this is you could easily start adding custom code to tweak this based upon the geolocation of the end user and maybe adjust the date accordingly. But that goes beyond what I want to cover in this video. Let's try one more example. Now this looks very similar to the first example we saw, but the difference here is we've got the abbreviated version of the month. So instead of June, we've got J-U-N, instead of July, J-U-L, March, M-A-R, and so on. So if you had a very long string and a short amount of space to put in, you may want to use the more abbreviated version. But using these in conjunction with the shortcodes that we can use for dropping in ACF fields, or it doesn't have to be ACF, you can be MetaBox, those kinds of things, gives us a lot of control over exactly how we output our data. And as you can see, it is incredibly simple to work with. Just a colon and then use those 3 digits in this example to be able to output and format the date in the way that we want to. And obviously, like I say, works with the time as well. I've created a written version of this which goes into a little bit more detail and also gives you all the different codes you can use to build out any kind of format that you want using those ACF or any kind of dynamic fields using the techniques covered in this video. And if you want to see how I use this in conjunction with some other really useful ways of working with Bricks Builder, you can take a look at this video next, which shows you how I've used this to create an events calendar for one of my websites.